có nơi bạn trô lại này Arthur, are you here?
Cô Arthur có tha con miên pa nhà ha ở cho ọt ca nữa
Do you
con
hear?
bán trong Telegram
គាត់ដាក់ហ្នឹងខ្ញុំឃើញគាត់អត់តាន់បាននេះគ្នាយើងជួយ copy link ហ្នឹងថ្ងៃគាត់ copy link meeting ថ្ងៃគាត់តិចណាអញ្ចឹងប្រចាំត្រូវការ account នេះគាត់ចូលសិនទៅតោះនេះគ្នាយើងណាគេម្នាក់អាច inbox ទៅគាត់ទៅណាហើយផ្ញើ link meeting
គាត់ចូលមកហើយ Hello trời
បាទ
គាត់ចូលមកហើយtrời
អូខេអញ្ចឹងដោយសារតែយើងមានសិស្ស exchange ម្នាក់អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំនឹងខុសជាអង់គ្លេសទៅហើយគ្នាយើងមានស្ដាប់អត់តាន់ឬក៏មានអីយើងអាចសួរបានជាខ្មែរក៏បានដែរអត់អីទេហ្នឹងហើយអូខេអញ្ចឹងក្នុងមេទីនេះយើងនឹងក្នុងមេទី1ខ្ញុំមិនជាមេទី1ណាអានេះជា introduction បន្តិចមកក្នុង semester 2ទៅកាន់ Mon Network. Okay, so welcome Arthur. I'm sure you are here. Welcome to network class. So in this semester there will be different topic will be covered based on the class of the first semester. All right, so the class that has been covered in the first semester regarding the configuration, the main understanding and fundamental knowledge of networking has been illustrated, and in this semester we are going to go beyond the understanding and the fundamental knowledge of how networking work and how you implement it, how does it work in your enterprise and company, how are you gonna configure and do all the fundamental configuration of the network itself. So those are the very important knowledge and the fundamental knowledge of networking. And next in this semester, but before we start, let us review some of the main knowledge we can carry on for the second semester. Okay, so let's do a little bit of review. What is computer network? I'm sure every one of you are aware of what is the meaning of computer network. Still, regardless of you understanding it, some of you is not able to paraphrase and understanding, what is the meaning of computer network. Here is just a book definition, And when doing the exam, you are not supposed to remember this. You are supposed to understand the concept of what is computer networking do and why do we do it? Why do we need a computer network? So that is more important than understanding or remembering these definitions. So let me share you something. Okay, I'll do it later. Okay, now I want any one of you, everyone, to involve in typing from your understanding of what is computer network and what do you see from, beside having the book definition and write your understanding of what is computer network. Okay. Now I have a trouble finding the whiteboard in the team. And one of you know how to have a whiteboard show on the screen? Okay, so everyone please click on the link web whiteboard where you can do some writing on the first task I asked you to do. So please click on the link. Now you can start write something. Now I want you to write what is from your understanding of computer network. Type something, please. Please don't draw anything, just type something. I see some people are typing. Good. Computer that can exchange information. That actually like the main purpose, most of all. That's just what networking do. We are supposed to connect and share information. That's it. Because if you see on the concept, it's not beside, going to access different information on the website, sharing a resource, a storage resource in your enterprise, having different services available to you. Those are just sharing computing resource, sharing information you need, uh, and that is like the fundamental and base of computer network. So some of you type is interconnected computing device that can exchange data and share resource with each other. So that the same one with what I have on the definitions. Okay, mainly for sharing between each other. Yep. So beside information, there are different services and need that computer networking is supposed to build the connection between those devices and fulfill all those services, such as servicing, requesting different resources, informations, sharing storage, sharing device. So if you in a small enterprise or big enterprise, before we don't have the printer where the printer connected to the network and everyone share the printer, but back then at the old time, we each of our computer have our own printer connected to our own device, our own computer at the office, at the at school. But that just wasting because most of the time you don't just print all the time. Why not sharing it with the network in your company or in your enterprise? That's also quite the purpose of computer networking. Okay, thank you. Now let's go back to our class. Next part. After you understand the okay, no, just to sum up the definition of computer network. So I'm sure most of you have understood it now. You get based on your writing on the board at least. So that is the base knowledge. It doesn't go any further than sharing resource, sharing device, sharing information. But the main is that computer network doesn't do it, right? Computer network is the one who connected those devices and make all those things you write possible. Those are the goal, the end goal of how computer network is supposed to connect it with each other, and then you can reach those services or information with computer network. It's the base. It's the baseline, right, of how those things are possible for everyone in the network. Okay, so let's go to see these three devices. I'm sure you remember on how these devices are different. Can any one of you share with me what is hub and how does it work? Anyone? Ratana, are you here?
Hello, sir.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit regarding what is hub and how does it work?
Hub is a layer 2 that usually broadcast out all out of the port and doesn't have a function like the switch.
Okay, that's good. Is hub on layer 1 or layer 2?
Again, teacher.
Is hub on layer 1 or is a layer 1 device or a layer 2 device?
Oh, layer 1 device.
Okay. So so most of the time you reference to the OSI model that we have learned on in the first semester. So OSI model is a reference model where you see the device and then you base the protocol and everything on the reference of the layer. Like what does it do in the layer? How does it work in the layer? And what are the different, between different devices that operate on different level of OSI model. Uh, that is very important. Thank you, Ratana. So it's a very basic understanding, right? How you just somebody sends something into hub, it's amplified the network. It doesn't understand anything on the traffic that's going through it because it doesn't have any, or you can say it doesn't have any brain to take a look into the data you send into hub. So hub, they don't know anything. You send something in electrical signals, they get it, they amplify those signals and broadcast back to all the port in the hub, right? So no computation or anything is needed in hub. They just amplify the information they get, the electrical signal they get, and send to every other port in the hub. And what is the small characteristic that we know of hub? Hub usually have a very little amount of port, right? Most hub have like 8 port, something. Yeah, definitely 8. Sometimes 6 or 4, because you have to already so aware that the bigger the port, the more problem you have in the network because the network congestion. So you have to do the time division in order for the traffic in the network to operate well. That is why you don't have much port on the hub at all, because normally and if it is a very busy network, hub is not really a good or an ideal solution option for the network as well. So that is the concept where hub is going to play. Even those right now we don't use any of these at some of the places. At least I guess some of the enterprise might have it for the small network in their personal network. Like most of the computer back then, we don't have many port. You use hub to expand the number of port you have connected with your device, with your computer. And then it's connected to, your printer, your scanner, and then other device that have a network, Ethernet port. So that is where usually hub is used, but not pretty much right now, as you are aware of it. Okay, let's move on to our next device, switch. Okay, let's go back to the whiteboard, and this time I want you to write, somebody please write the 3 main base function of switch. What are they, and how does it work? Go on. What are the 3 main functions of switch, and how does it work? Okay. Okay, somebody just input something. Switch is a data link layer network device. Okay, that's good. Packet switching to send and receive data. Yep. That's why it calls switch as well. If you know in the name itself, it's just switching packet. from one port to another. That's it. That's why it's called switch, right? Okay, somebody type learning. So learning is one of the main function in switch. So what does it do in learning? Yep, learning, floating, and forwarding. That's good. And yep, somebody type what does floating do? So switch forward the incoming packet to all port when it hasn't yet learned how to reach the destination. So that's uh, yep, that's one of the way you can say. Flooding is more like it's like you don't have the database in your table, right? And if everyone remember, we talk about MAC address table on switch, right? This is where switch do all those function is based on those database they have, the MAC table, right? So MAC table, MAC address table is the place where switch store the information of how the device is connected to itself. For example, if I have a switch, they have 4 or 6 ports. They have a database of those 6 ports, like how does which port number is connected to which MAC address of the device connected to itself. So I'm sure you are aware that every device we use have a MAC address, right? So every time you have a connected to a switch act as they have a database. They check if you have a MAC address, and then if you are connected to one of the port of itself, switch will write your MAC address into the MAC address table that associate with the port number that you are in. That is flooding, right? So okay, thank you. I think you can stop now. So I see some of you have already, right? This one is pretty good. I'm not sure if you are copying from the previous slide or the last semester slide, but that's good. So flooding, you don't know how to reach the destination, so you just flood the packet. You just flood the port. Flooding means you don't care what it is. You just share the information to all the port, and whichever port receives and respond to that packet with their MAC address, then switch will store their MAC address into the MAC address table, right? And then there is forwarding. Forwarding is like switching, right? You can just say switching or forwarding. Yep. Switching, you switch from one port to another. Forwarding meaning you get the data from one of the ports and then you forward it to another port. And how do you forward it? Switch look on their MAC address table where they see, okay, the packet is coming from this device on this port, and they want to reach this device. Because normally in the packet in the layer 2, there is a MAC address destination and there is a source MAC address, all right? So that is how a switch is able to look into the data, the traffic that's supposed to be sent, and check what is the MAC address destination, and then it just forwarded the packet to the correct port that associated with that MAC address, right? And then there is learning. So learning is where switch normally it's happen after flooding or with the modern switch, the layer 3 switch you can say, or modern switch. To once the port is with one the switch is turned on, normally they already broadcasting. They do some of the default configuration of the manufacturer to send a small packet in order to learn and understand the MAC address of the device connected to them to itself. So that is where after they learn, how they learn is that when they know the MAC address associated with the port of switch, then they store it into MAC address, and that's how they learn. And then every time you need there's a traffic coming in, and they have to look into the data and see the MAC address destination, and then comparing it with the MAC address table on itself and see which port are associated, and then the packet is forwarding. That is basically what switch can do. Although I still like to mention that there is a modern switch where they can do a lot more than these three functions, but normally these are the three main functions in every switch you can have. All right, either the old one, or the new one, or the layer 3 one. These are still the three main functions the switch is are supposed to do. Okay. Now let's move on to another device, a router. Okay. So uh, can someone tell me what router is and what does it do? Okay. Now let me. Okay. Can somebody tell me what router does? What is router and how does it work? Sophia, Sophia, can you do it? Sophia?
Yes, teacher. I could say, not sure about definition, but I could say that router is a routing device that is use the IP address to transfer the packet from one to others net in the network.
Anything else? Okay, I think she's here. So that's almost correct, right? You might need some more word on how does it transfer the traffic from one network to another, because you see when switch working on the layer 2, meaning they only understand MAC address, whereas router is working on layer 3 where they know the IP address of the traffic from the source IP address and the destination IP address. But what router does is not just switching the port like switch does. Well, basically, it seems like that, but it does a lot more than just switching from one port of the traffic to another port of the traffic. But but on the fundamental base, you can see that router have 2 or 3 or 4 ports. If the traffic coming to this port and then they have another port going out, that will be look like switch where just traffic coming in and then you go around and then you transfer it into another port. So that is basically you can see, but actually router is the device where they do a lot of computation in terms of routing. That's why that's why you are aware of in the last semester we learned about routing table, right? What are the information is stored on the table so that router can do the routing. Routing is not just telling which port they go, but they also tell the way to reach the network destination. So the handle of which device to send, the router doesn't work on it. Router does just to transfer the traffic from one of the network, the source network, to the destination network. So you don't just switch based on port and then go to the actual device, right? You switch based on port. It's like telling to go through this port, route through this port to reach this network, and then this network, the next network will also do the same thing. But if it is the traffic destined for themselves, they will check it if they have the IP address of the computer on their network, and then they do maybe they have a switch or something. The router will move on and route that to a switch, and switch is the one who still does the switching to the correct IP address or MAC address of the MAC address of the destination, right? So router is more like understanding the pathway and know where how to reach the network as a whole, okay? A network as a whole, not just the one device in the specific network. So that is basically what router does. So still, you have to understand the base of switch, okay? You have MAC address table. It's like the whole brain of switch, okay? And in the router, you have a routing table, which is also the brain of the router. But still, some of the it's can different depending on the configuration of the network administrator on the router as well. So sometimes they do broadcasting, sometimes they do because dynamic routing is one of the way that making router having different or more computation and do a lot more process than a switch. All right. Uh, that is it. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Network protocol standard. Please give me a minute and review what is the network standard and protocol. I'll come back in a minute. Okay, so I'm sorry, everyone. Everyone here? Okay, good. So let's just give a small word of the understanding of network protocol and standard. Okay, so as we already talked, I mean, if you remember when we talk about protocol, it's different method, different approach on how computer is interacted with each other. Because back then, when you have a computer, different manufacturer, they created their own protocol and then they follow it and then they build their stuff to just fit well with their protocol. That is how we have problem in terms of having a lot of manufacturer building different device with different protocol and standard, and that cause a lot of problem because you don't go around and buy only this company computer, because otherwise you buy different part of the device connected to each other. It's not possible back then because there is no standard or no standard protocol at least, so that those manufacturer will follow and make it possible that we can buy different thing from different company, different manufacturer, and then put it together so that we have a completed device, right? So that is how we need to have a net. That's why there is a network protocol and standard that we need to follow, right? Even for communication, back then different manufacturer, they have different cable. They build different cable, and in that cable they use their communication protocol so that their device can use that cable or whatever it is to communicate with each other. But you can see the problem here, right? If I have a computer from different manufacturer, I will not be able to use that cable. So that is the problem. That is how we need to have a network protocol and standard for a certain purpose or certain standard, right? So that is the basic and in understanding of network protocol and standard. And it's not just routing protocol. It's not just communication protocol or standard device. It's all around device, computing device, network, and everything. So there is supposed to be a standard and a protocol. That's why we have international standard organization, right? So that they manage and telling all those enterprise or manufacturer to follow this one standard protocol and all that, so that we can use those uh, different device and cable, right? Okay, let's do another one and then we can have a small break, okay? So IP address. I'm sure some of you during the exam I saw some of your answer is really, what could I say? Not what I expected. Okay, that's a good one. What I not expected regarding that. It's just totally on the one sentence of how what is IP address. So can any of you tell me what is IP address besides what is written on the slide? Uh, anyone? Lissy? Lissy? Are you here? Yes. Anyone want to tell me what is IP address? Okay. Let's just go to the whiteboard then, and then you can type something for me, okay? So let's go ahead to go back to the whiteboard I shared with you. Please type something. What is IP address, okay? Go ahead and click on text. You don't need to draw anything, all right? That way is better for you. Okay, so somebody writing, okay. IP address is a unique number, that's correct. Well, at least in the public network, if you remember that, because in IP address there is a public and private IP address, right? Where you talk about the ID for the device in your local network, that would be a unique number in a local network. That's a good one. Okay, that's good. IP address is stand for Internet Protocol Address. Anything else? Okay. Used to fill or assign information for device. Okay. It's not used to fill the information. It's more like used as a ID, as a identifier of the network. Or you can say it's a primary key of the device if we relate to database and all that, right? And unique is the specific word we can use for in that case for IP address, yes. Except I'm sure maybe some of you remember regarding the public IP. So you need public IP address to access the internet, right? So if you are in the local network where you have not a public IP, I'm sure you remember that. So if you are in a local network, you don't have a public IP address, right? What the IP address you have is the private IP address. And with that, how do you access to, can you tell me how do you access to internet with your private address? Somebody? Numerical address that identify the device in internet or local network. Yep, that's good. Now tell me if you have a private network, if you have a private IP address, how do you access to the internet? Remember that? Anyone? Okay, IP address is a string of character. Okay, that's good. Using net on router. Okay, thank you. Somebody has written that. So when you are you are in your local network where you have your private IP address and you need to access to the internet or the outer network, you need a unique IP, a public IP. So, but it's not possible to, allow everyone to have a public IP address in your network because there is not enough IP address to go around. I'm sure you remember getting that. So that's why we have NAT. So what is NAT? A network address translation, right? It's a protocol where you have to divert or change the private IP address in your network to a public IP so that you can do all the requests going to different request different services and different resource from the internet. So that is how NAT come into play on the router, and that is very important in the network. All right, because it's like the gateway where your local device in the network can access to internet. Okay, so thank you everyone. Let's go. Okay, let's finish this one. What is routing? Okay, it's I think we talked a little bit about it already in the network device regarding router. So that is the process of what a router do, right? Routing is the thing that router do. It's in the name itself. So routing is like finding the best pathway for the network for the traffic to access to the destination of where it's want to go, right? So as I said, there are different routing protocol. There's static routing, dynamic routing, and then in dynamic routing, there are many different protocols: BGP, ISIS, and OSFP. A lot of different networking, routing protocol, right? And some of you, when I put in the exam the question regarding the advantages and disadvantages of routing protocol, I'm not asking you for the dynamic routing protocol, and some of you is typing is just a random routing protocol, SPF, BGP, and all that, IETLP, and all that, but it's not the answer, right? What I want is to know is the advantage and disadvantages of static routing and dynamic routing. All right. Okay. I think we can just review this part. Now let's have a 5-minute break. We'll see each other at 10:18. Okay. Okay, is everyone back? So those review, those part is where you really need to understand and have the actual knowledge of understanding those parts. Those are really important part where moving forward, those are like the the building, the small the base of what is coming next, and those configuration and all that. So those are very important knowledge for everyone to know moving forward that this will cost the whole damage. If you're working in an enterprise as a network engineer, as a network administrator, those is just like the small part, but it's very crucial in the network itself. So please be aware of that. And this is the roadmap where we will be talking about in this second semester. Okay, the first part is planning a network. So a network is defined as a grouping of hardware, device, software component that all are used to somehow connected and provide the connection to the organization or your enterprise. Because but no, that's what normally a network engineer do, but at the very start of the enterprise, right? So you need to have a crucial and foolproof plan on how the network is working out or turning out in your organization, right? Planning is one of the part where it take a lot of time, not in terms of technical part, but more on understanding, the different criteria of the network is working out in your organization. Where it is, how does it work? Do we use hub? Do we use switch? Which protocol do we use? Do we have that many devices? What software do we use? Uh, and all that thing. Those are uh, the crucial every little detail in the network where the network engineer or the network administrator in the network will have to plan out before everything is deployed. Although I have to tell you that although as a network engineer, you don't go around and just planning and all that, because normally when you go and work in the organization or an enterprise, normally there is already a network infrastructure implemented in your network. All right. However, that doesn't mean that you're not going to do the planning and all that. It's just that you already have it. Now you have to working on improving it. You don't just go, okay, we already have this, we can use it, right? That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. You go, you look around for the mistake that is made, and then we plan on building or upgrading your network infrastructure. That is also the crucial part where you have to learn on planning and building your network, because otherwise it's just a mess if you just go around and upgrade and do this and change that. That is not gonna work. Plus, you have to keep tab of every history on how your network in the organization is implemented. That way, we can transfer the work when the new network engineer, you have a moving on. There is a package where the network engineer, the next one, they can just read and understand the infrastructure you have in hand at your organization. All right. That's why network planning and network is one of the crucial part, and that as the roadmap of a network engineer or network infrastructure. All right. គ្នាយើងតដែរមានសំណួរទេអាចសួរជាខ្មែរបានណាអត់អីទេចឹងការធ្វើគម្រោង building network ណាមួយវាសំខាន់មែនតើវាជាគ្រឹះផ្នែកមួយដំបូងគេបំផុតនៅក្នុង network ហើយបើអត់មានអាហ្នឹងទេធ្វើអីក៏ទៅមកដែរណា ข้อនេះខុសនោះទិញ device ខុស device ខុសខ្សែវាអត់មាន efficiency នៅក្នុង network ហេតុផលហ្នឹងឯងបាន planning a network គឺសំខាន់ណាស់ហើយវាជា road map ជា small step មួយដែលយើងត្រូវដឹងក្នុងការ moving on as a network engineer ឬក៏ network administrator នៅតាម organization ឬក៏ enterprise ណាមួយអូខេហើយ enterprise ភាគច្រើន planning network like if you plan a network in different enterprise, in different organization, they use different ecosystem. If you know, like if in Smart Azita, the telecom company, most of their network infrastructure and device use Huawei. They use Huawei technology, so that they have the ecosystem of using Huawei technology, their device, their software, and everything. But in different enterprise, they have a Cisco. So although they are a bit different, the planning is still the same, but not exactly the same, but the step on how you take to determine and identify all those device and cable and software and everything is still the same. But when planning out and drawing the infrastructure, like if you are in the Huawei ecosystem, they would ask you to use their simulation software in order to planning out the infrastructure. If you are in a Cisco ecosystem company, you will be likely to use a packet tracer to build those or to plan those infrastructure out so that you can see clearer on how on the planning. All right. The second step of in the roadmap of becoming a network engineer or network infrastructure is implementing the network. So implementing is the step where you have everything already figured out, but where you do the configuration, understanding the software, how you patch, and the management of the device, where it's located, and how you put in all that. That is the I would say implementing a network is more likely to go different than the plan, and at least that is how I actually met myself. When we plan, we want to do this and do that, but still, when the implementation stage comes, it's there will be quite a problem we are not expected to do, and then it's just coming out. So that's where you require to be very flexible in terms of your knowledge of implementing the network, and it's from case to case. So there is no specific where you need to do this and do that, but you still need to plan very well so that during the implementation there wouldn't be any error coming up, so that you need to run around and looking for the solution. So after that is how you normally do. Either you plan a new network, or you plan on upgrading your network, or upgrading your infrastructure, changing the software you use in the current system and all that. The next step of implementation is where the actual device and the actual software is being deployed, and that is also where you need all the documentation on how you deploy your software and how you identify and understanding those device and hardware you use in your network. That is the part where you implement the network. Okay. The next one, this is probably one of the most boring, or at least it will be interesting if you want to be a network head of a networking, or most really becoming a CTO in this is like the technology officer of the company. Managing network is really taking a lot of work, a lot of time, and that's why most of the time, beside you build and implementing your network, you will become a network administrator who will manage the whole network. If you can see, managing the network is to installing, configuring, updating, protecting your network, uh, and repairing, and all that. It's like all the where the hard work come. All right, when you plan and then your implementation, everything is in your hand, and afterward you do the managing, monitoring, and understanding, tuning, getting to the optimal state of your network. That's where the actually daily work of a network engineer and network administrator, right? Managing network. Because you don't just go around and implementing and planning the network all day long in your organization. It's a phase, all right? It's a phase. Planning is a phase, implementing is a phase, but managing is a life cycle of the network, right? So if you can see, I highlighted the part where network hardware and network software. So these are the two main elements where you talk about as a network administrator, you have to take care of the device you have, the hardware, and the software you have. You're buying different software-defined network. You need to patch. You need to upgrading. There is a new for example, there is a new feature coming out of a software. Should you update it? Should you not? What is the benefit of updating the software you already have and all that? That is you as a network engineer and administrator do mostly and almost every day as a network. Monitoring is also one of the part, but normally you don't do monitoring sitting in front of your computer looking at all those networking going around like that. All right. So, but monitoring is also one of the thing you will be doing in terms of in managing your network as well. Normally, there are different type of monitoring. You sometimes you monitor the network itself, the cable, the device. Uh, uh, we can say the hardware cutout, right? Where it's not a problem from software, it's more like a problem from the hardware. So you're monitoring that, and then there is also monitoring the traffic coming out and coming into your network. There is a different kind of software where you can use in your router or your gateway firewall from the enterprise from your organization to understand what are the traffic coming in into your network and going out of your network. And here they say most importantly, network administrator take care of the network user, right? It's like that's why you can see that we need a network administrator everything because you don't go around like to implement the network and then all of the sudden you don't need to do anything else because everything is already working out and connected and user can connect to internet and all that. So it's not actually happening. That would be the dream of the network engineer or administrator of having no problem at all with the network with the user in the network, right? So another part is to listening to the trouble of the user itself, or the staff normally in the organization, and solving that problem. It probably of the software update, different question on how they cannot reach something, the internet is not working, software update in their computer network and all that. going managing is one of the hard work, all right. And in all the step of becoming a network engineer and network administrator, and network security is not actually the step of the network, the roadmap of the network, but it is one of the big or main part in as a network administrator, all right. Well, at least if you remember back then, we don't call it cyber security. We call it network security, or sometimes we call it information technology security, IT security, right? Because back then we don't really have much of different approach like right now on how different peoples who do, to all perform different tasks in order to breach your network. That is the part where the where cyber security come in. But by then, because of normally the breaching is coming from the network level. That's why we have a network security. And most of all, the implementation of network security is where you really shine in terms of protecting your company or enterprise network, right? Network security is a very fundamental, but it's almost 90 to 93% of how your network can be protected. It's not that you need to have a strong and expensive firewall, but it is the it's the simple thing in terms of implementing your network with security and detailing and all that really cause your network to be breached. All right. So here they say we say network security in the simplest term. It's just a set of rule and configuration, right? Designed to protect the integrity, confidentiality, and accessibility of the network. Okay, so it's really simple. In network security, you don't if you don't use the software at least, but there is actually a lot of software you can use to protect your network. But besides using the network, the implementation itself that will help to reduce the risk of being breached by a person in the you know at the bar or something. So in computer in the switch, when we learn about switch, I'm sure you remember we learn about the trunk mode and access mode where we do the intervalent communication between the two VLAN. And that is also actually one of the security risks in the network as well, because normally you don't go on and turn on all the port to be a trunk mode so that each VLAN can communicate. It doesn't work that way. That's why, if you remember, we studied about trunk and access mode, and then we do the practice in terms of having all the port in the switch to become a trunk mode so that they can communicate. But that's in the next step we learn a better way on how we can manage a port on the switch with the trunk and access mode for intervalent routing. So you can see that is the one of the problem that we can see, because some people sometimes when we use when we implementation, we say it's better to just do it because it's easier, right? Because you don't need to do a lot of configuration and command and all that. You just turn on the train mode and everyone will be communicatable during according to the rule of the network. But that would risk a lot in your risk of exploiting your data a lot in the network. And then that is the problem. That's why we have a different method and different approach and how we handle those information, right? And here we say every organization, regardless of the size, industry, or infrastructure, network security is always needed to be to protect the network of those company and organization from the threat outside, right? And today there's a lot more threat from the the outside world more than ever before, because there's a very growing part of that. It's not just us coming to protect our network, but there are those people behind the back, behind the bar, sneaking on, wanting to gain access and take something from your network. And it's not always about money and all that in your network that they want. Sometimes they just start learning out, becoming a security engineer and all that. So they like testing. That is also one of the problem. They just are testing around on the network or your system. That is crazy risky. If you just think that your network is okay, nothing is gonna happen. That would be the problem in your network, right? Okay, going back to network security is designed to protect integrity, confidentiality, and accessibility of the computer network. Can can somebody let's go on to our whiteboard and please tell me what is the definition of integrity, confidentiality, and accessibility of your computer network? Okay. Let's see what. Can you go on internet and check this reward? What can you understand from confidentiality, accessibility, and integrity of the network? Okay. You can have 5 minutes. Mình ấy vậy. Sai đây mà, sai cái confidentiality, accessibility, and integrityใน computer network.
គាត់និយាយតិចលឿនជាងលោកគ្រូ
Okay, តោះមានតែគេចាំងគេមក
អាហ្នឹងដូចជា code របស់ CIA ឬក៏ confidentiality គឺនិយាយពីការ share របស់មួយដែលវា secret ហើយប្រកាសថាមានតែបុគ្គលម្នាក់ដែលត្រូវបាន share ហ្នឹងវាអាចបើកបានយើងនិយាយពី public key មួយ private key ក្នុងមេរៀនដោយ asymmetry មួយ symmetry key អីអត់គ្រូ
អូខេ
អាហ្នឹង
អានេះយើងចូលទៅក្នុង cyber security ជាងអានេះវាចូលទៅក្នុង encryption ហើយតែ CIA trade ផ្សេងណា CIA trade នៅក្នុង cyber ផ្សេងវាស្តៀងគ្នាប៉ុន្តែប៉ុន្តែក្នុងន័យនេះវាខុសគ្នាបន្តិចណា
អញ្ចឹងអីដែលលោកគ្រូកំពុងនិយាយនេះអានេះនិយាយពី cryptography មែនទេគ្រូដែលនិយាយពី public key private key
នេះខ្ញុំនិយាយអំពី network security ជា network security ក៏វាមាន trade វាដែរណាតែ CIA trade របស់ cyber ផ្សេងវាមាន meaning ផ្សេងហើយក៏មិនក្នុង CIA trade របស់ cyber គឺ confidentiality integrity and availability មិន accessibility ណាតែវាស្តៀងគ្នាណាដែលខ្ញុំនិយាយហ្នឹងវាស្តៀងគ្នាតែខ្ញុំអត់ចង់ឲ្យយើងកុំ view ពី cyber part យើង view នៅក្នុង network នៅក្នុង network តើវាយើង refer ទៅលើគេព្រោះ cyber វាមិន apply តែបើកន្លែងនេះវា apply គ្រប់ទាំងអស់គ្រប់ part ទាំងអស់នៃ cyber security តាំងពី network តាំងពី application តាំងពី encryption តាំងពី data presentation session នៅគ្រប់ផ្នែកនៃ cyber security ប៉ុន្តែយើងនិយាយ network security យើង apply តែនៅលើ level network ទេណាចឹងបើសិនជាយើងនិយាយបាទ
អញ្ចឹងតែអីដែលលោកគ្រូនិយាយថា network security ហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងយើងអាចនិយាយថាដូចគ្នាជាមួយនឹងរៀនជាមួយនឹង cryptography អត់ទេគ្រូព្រោះ cryptography ក៏មានអាហ្នឹងដែរ confidentiality integrity ហ្នឹង
បាទចឹងនៅក្នុង cryptography យើងរៀនCIA trade ផ្សេងយើងនិយាយអំពីដាក់របៀបធ្វើម៉េច encrypt data ធ្វើម៉េចមាន key យើង calculate យើងអីយើងទៅក្នុង network security យើងមិនរៀនហ្នឹង network security យើងរៀនអំពីការ identify rules ដែលចូលនៅក្នុង network monitor ការចូលនៃ incoming traffic ការ access ទៅកាន់sharing resource អីផ្សេងយើងនិយាយអំពីបើឥឡូវខ្ញុំនិយាយថានៅក្នុង integrity យើងនិយាយអំពីភាពច្បាស់លាស់នៃ data គឺគ្រប់ traffic ដែល send នៅក្នុង network ទាំងអស់គឺមិនត្រូវបានកែប្រែដោយពីណាគេមួយ research party ណាមួយហ្នឹងគេនិយាយសម្រាប់ទៅលើ integrity នៅក្នុង network វាស្តៀងគ្នានៅនឹង CIA ប៉ុន្តែcyber security trade ប៉ុន្តែក្នុង cyber security trade វាមានសម្រាប់ទៅលើ network តែមួយណាគេសម្ដែងលើតាំងពីសំបីតលេខកូដ banking របស់យើងដែលយើងអត់មានប្រើ system អីតែ manage ទេណាក៏យើងត្រូវរក្សាទុកវាជា integrity ដែរណាអញ្ចឹងវាតាំងគ្រប់ level តាំងពី application រហូតដល់ traffic signal អញ្ចឹងវាខុសគ្នាបន្តិចគ្រាន់ថាយើងសំដៅទៅលើ network level អញ្ចឹងធម្មតាបើយើងមាន system វាមាន application level security ដែលធម្មតាអ្នកដែល develop application ឬ system ហ្នឹងគាត់អ្នកតែសេទៅមិន application ហ្នឹងវា secure ក្នុង network យើងអត់ worry ទៅលើអាហ្នឹងទេតែយើងក៏ត្រូវដឹងដែរគាត់ថាហ្នឹងវាផ្នែកធំនៃ cyber ណា cyber វាធំយ៉ាងអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុង network វានិយាយ integrity យើងនិយាយ integrity នៃ traffic ដែលរត់នៅក្នុង network របស់យើងតោះណាបាទ
ខ្ញុំច្រឡំឡើងនេះព្រោះខ្ញុំច្រឡំឲ្យតែ confidentiality ខ្ញុំដឹកឃើញដល់ cryptography អំពីការយើងធ្វើ asymmetry អីហ៎
បាទ symmetry key និង asymmetry key ហ្នឹងផ្សេងបន្តិចហ្នឹងហើយ
ព្រោះពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងធ្វើវិបត្តិអីសាច់ការធាតុ digital អីហ្នឹងខ្ញុំច្រឡំមួយអាហ្នឹងរហូតព្រោះអញ្ចឹងឥឡូវលោកគ្រូបកស្រាយថា network security ជាមួយ cyber ហ្នឹងវាផ្សេងគ្នាអញ្ចឹងរៀង clear ជាងមុនបន្តិច
ពេលយើងនិយាយ cyber វាធំណាវាធំវាមិនមែនគ្រាន់តែ network ទេវាមិនគ្រាន់តែ protocol apply ទាំងអស់នៅគ្រប់ layer នៃ communication protocol នៅក្នុង application ក៏យើង apply CIA trade របស់ cyber security ដែរហ្នឹងហើយប៉ុន្តែនៅក្នុង network គឺយើងមើល view នៅលើ level network នៅក្នុង level application គេ view នៅលើ level application ចឹងទៅអញ្ចឹងពេលយើងនិយាយថាគេចង់មាន cyber security analyst ឬក៏ cyber security specialist អីចឹងទៅមិនមែនធ្វើតែមួយទេតាមណាពេលយើងទៅធ្វើវាអាចយើងធ្វើនៅលើ application level យើងអាចធ្វើនៅលើ network level យើងអាចធ្វើនៅក្នុង level ផ្សេងអាចធ្វើនៅក្នុង backup recovery អាចនៅក្នុង incident response អីចឹងទៅវាមានផ្នែកផ្សេងៗគ្នានៃអីដែលយើងអាចធ្វើបាននៅក្នុង cyber security អូខេឥឡូវយើងបកមក network security យើងវិញចឹងមិញខ្ញុំនិយាយឲ្យតើតើហ្នឹង integrity ណាចាំឡើយ confidentiality ម្ដងមិនដែរចឹង confidentiality ស្ទៀងដូចគ្នានឹងរតនៈបានចែកម្លែកមុនហ្នឹងទៅចឹងណាចឹង confidentiality គឺសំដៅទៅលើ the availability of the traffic of the network is supposed to be only for two people, the sender and the receiver, right? But normally when the traffic is coming through or going through a lot of network, normally there will be some people who is doing the sniffing in taking those data and read it, and that will violate the availability, the confidentiality of the network, right? Because somebody has access to it. But normally it's easier in terms of cable. If you use a cable network, it's normally easier to protect it otherwise rather than wireless. Wireless is less secure in terms of sniffing because everyone who get the correct channel of your frequency of your wireless network, it will be risked that your traffic is being listened by somebody else. That will violate the confidentiality trade, right? But still, there is a lot of software and protocol you need to use in order, even those people can get those data, those traffic, but they cannot understand it. It's still good as a confidentiality. So in the network, if in case of wireless communication, if you have the people in the back sniffing your traffic and seeing your packet, if they cannot see the data and the meaning in understanding your message from one to another, it still doesn't violate the confidentiality because even though they can get the message, they don't understand it, right? So that's why we have encryption. Encryption in the traffic is one of the part where like Ratana said, it's one of the cybersecurity trade, but in our network protocol and Ethernet protocol, you also encrypt your traffic, right? That is the one of the part where you do the proof not to violate the confidentiality trade of the network, right? ចឹងបកមកវិញ confidentiality គឺការដែលមិនមានអ្នកទី3យល់ឬដឹងអំពី message របស់យើងចឹងបើសិនជានៅក្នុង computer network បើសិនជា computer A ខ្ញុំផ្ញើទៅ computer B computer ផ្សេងទៀតគួរតែមិនទទួលបានបើទទួលបានគឺគាត់មិនត្រូវអាចយល់បានទេណាអាហ្នឹងជា confidentiality ហើយហ្នឹងតោះណាប៉ុន្តែធម្មតានៅក្នុង network នៅពេលដែល traffic រត់កាត់ network ច្រើនមានកន្លែងខ្លះគឺគេមាន router គេដាក់ប្រចាំហ្មងសម្រាប់គេ switch traffic អញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលមាន traffic ចូលមកបើគេចង់ដឹងអញ្ចឹងគេកាំងអាហ្នឹងទុកមួយហើយគេ amplify ហើយឲ្យរត់ traffic ហ្នឹងរត់ទៅយើងមួយទៀតតែគេក៏អាច read the message ហ្នឹងបានដែរឃើញទេចាហ្នឹងជាបញ្ហាតែដូចខ្ញុំនិយាយមិញអញ្ចឹងធម្មតា wireless វាមានបញ្ហាហ្នឹងច្រើនជាងដោយសារតែបើជាខ្សែលុះត្រាតែគាត់នៅក្នុង network របស់យើងតែបើ wireless គាត់នៅក្នុង network ក៏ដោយនៅពេលដែលគាត់ scan ធ្វើ sniffing ហើយត្រូវ frequency ឬ channel ជាមួយ traffic message ដែលយើង send នៅក្នុង wireless ហ្នឹងពី computer មួយ computer មួយ វា risk ធ្វើឲ្យ message ហ្នឹងត្រូវបាន គេមើលឃើញ right? Okay, and the last one talking about accessibility, right? What is accessibility? Chẳng vì different តិចតទៅទៅនឹង accessibility មួយ availability ដែលជា CIA trait ណាចឹង accessibility យ៉ាង smaller គឺសំដៅទៅលើ message ហ្នឹងយើងឬក៏ traffic ហ្នឹង network មួយហ្នឹងពេលដាច់តើមានអី backup ទៅរត់ចូលអត់ណាចឹងគេទូទៅនៅក្នុង network ក៏យើងមានខ្សែ backup ដែរគេមាន network អាចមាន2ឬ3 network ចឹងបើសិនជាពួកយើងនៅចាំនៅក្នុងយើងរៀនអំពី static routing យើងចាំហ្នឹងចឹងបើសិនជាយើង identify តាមមួយ pathway ដើម្បីឲ្យ device network មួយរត់ទៅកាន់ network មួយទៀតចឹងនៅពេលដែល pathway នឹង error ឬក៏ខូចឬក៏ device នៅក្នុង router ណាមួយនៅក្នុង static routing ដែលយើង add ទៅនឹងវាមានបញ្ហាអញ្ចឹងធ្វើឲ្យ traffic ហ្នឹងនឹងដួលឡើងដល់អញ្ចឹង accessibility យើងត្រូវបាន violate បាត់ហើយអញ្ចឹងគេទៅគេដែរបើសិនជា apply static routing ក៏គេមិនដែរដាក់តែមួយដែរណាមាន2ទៅ3 route ឬ2ទៅ3 pathway ដើម្បីទៅកាន់ network របស់យើងទៅកាន់ destination network អាហ្នឹងជា accessibility បានន័យថាគឺយើងមានអាច access ទៅកាន់ network នឹងរហូតមានបញ្ហាយើងអាចមាន backup ឬក៏អីយ៉ាងទៅណាចា៎ហ្នឹងជា accessibility គឺសំដៅទៅលើការ reach ទៅកាន់ destination ឬក៏ network ដែលយើងចង់ទៅនៅក្នុង network level
យើងអាចនិយាយចេះបានទៅគ្រូដើម្បីការពារកុំឲ្យ violent ទៅលើ accessibility ហ្នឹងយើងអាច apply redundancy ចូលក្នុង static routing បានដែរគ្រូយើងអាចនិយាយចឹងបាន
បាទអញ្ចឹងអានឹងជាផ្នែកមួយជា concept នៃ redundancy ជា concept មួយដែលយើង apply នៅក្នុង network ដូចគ្នាណាស្តៀងគ្នាទៅនឹង architecture របស់ server ដែរទោះយើងនិយាយថា redundancy វាមានតែមួយណាអញ្ចឹងwe mean different architecture that you can use. You can have active pathway. You can have active passive pathway. You can have active backup pathway and all that. ចឹង redundancy ជា concept មួយដែលយើងអាចប្រើបានដូចរតនៈនិយាយមិនអញ្ចឹងគឺយើងមាន static យើងមាន routing pathway មួយទៅប៉ុន្តែយើងគិតថាបើសិនជា dual អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំអាចទៅកាន់ network នេះក៏បានដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងធ្វើ static routing ទៅកាន់ network នឹងទៅតែដោយប្រើ pathway ផ្សេងអាហ្នឹងគឺជា concept accessibility Okay, summarize. Okay, coming back to our lesson, I just like to point it out that these are the part or the roadmap of how you do computer network and becoming a network engineer or network administrator. First, you do the planning. Normally, planning is where you really need to shine as well, because I don't believe many of our enterprise in Cambodia is having this kind of network infrastructure planning very well. So that is where you can shine by upgrading, doing update on the all infrastructure. What is the better way, efficient way on how you can plan your network out. Secondly, as the implementation. So that is also where you have to play out very well as well in terms of reducing the error when during the implementation, understanding and complete control over what you are going to deploy in the network and all that, defining the device, the software, how you can install it and everything. And the most important part is managing the network. So after you plan, after you implement, that's where you need to do a lot of work is managing your network. So because normally, even those as you're working as a network engineer or network administrator, you don't go around planning every day, like I said, right? So that is our two phase of planning and implementing, but the managing is the part where you really need to where it take a lot of work. That's a better way. Okay. And the last part you need to aware of is network security in terms of understanding the firewall, the gateway firewall, the access control list of your network, on the router, on the switch, different mode of communication in the network. Okay. So that's the end of our first introduction into network roadmap. Do you have any question? មានសំណួរអីមានអាចសួរជាខ្មែរក៏បានដែរណា
លោកគ្រូខ្ញុំសុំសួរមួយលោកគ្រូ
បាទ
network security លោកគ្រូនិយាយពី firewall វិញ firewall យើងឈរមាននឹងយើងរៀនដែរមែនលោកគ្រូ firewall ជា next generation firewall ឬមួយក៏មិនវិញលោកគ្រូបាទរៀន
យើងមានរៀនពី configuration នៅលើ network នៅលើ firewall ណាយើងគ្រាន់រៀនឲ្យស្គាល់ស្អីគេទៅ firewall តើវាដើរតួជាអីគេតើវាជួយអីគេនៅក្នុង network security ប៉ុន្តែយើងអត់មានរៀនspecific ទៅលើ next generation firewall ឬក៏ firewall របស់មួយណាល្អជាងអីអានេះយើងអត់រៀនទេប៉ុន្តែយើងទូទៅយើងអាច identify បាននៅក្នុងការយល់ដឹងទៅលើ router device មួយនៃ firewall gateway ហ្នឹងណាតែអីដែលយើងរៀនអត់ដល់ detail ថាតើយើងធ្វើ configuration មិននៅលើ firewall តើយើង monitor បែបម៉េចតើយើងអាច install software អីគេដើម្បីreduce network security អីហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងយើងអត់ដល់ហ្នឹងយើងគ្រាន់រៀនឲ្យស្គាល់ស្អីគេ firewall ស្អីគេតើវាដើរតួអីគេនៅក្នុង network ហើយវាជួយអីគេបាន
បាទគ្រូអរគុណច្រើន
Any other question គឺយើងមានសំណួរទេណា អូខេបាទមានទេយើងបញ្ចប់ប៉ុណ្្នឹងចុះហើយគ្រប់ ATP ម៉ោង 1:10 នាទីណា
បាទលោកគ្រូ
អរគុណច្រើន
ជំរាបលាលោកគ្រូ
ជំរាបលាលោកគ្រូ
បាទជំរាបលាអរគុណ
ជំរាបលាឈើ
បាទជំរាបលា